Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my new video where we are going to go over my top 5 tips I think every single Twisted Fate player needs to know. Now, my goal behind this video is to make you a better Twisted Fate player and to give you a better understanding of the champion as a whole. If you're new to my channel, my name is Lowfit. I do educational content, I do tips videos, guide videos, and also stream here on YouTube, so make sure to hit that bell button if you want to ask me any questions directly. I also put timestamps at the top of my page for this intro and for all of the tips if you want to skip to the next one, because I heavily value you guys' time. And next up, if you want to contact me directly, send me messages. As I said before, you can hit me up on one of my streams, or I'm going to put a link to my Discord down in the pinned comments, and we can chat there if you like. Also, lastly, I'd really like if you guys would add your own tips of Twisted Fate. There is a pretty big one-trick community, and if you want to just help people that might stumble across this page and they're looking to pick up Twisted Fate, I am a bit limited with this format, only doing 5 tips because I don't want the video to run too long. Make sure to add those down below. And with all that out of the way, let's get into tip number 1. Okay, and getting into tip number 1, I want to give you guys a couple different ways you can increase the accuracy of your cue card. With Twisted Fate being an extremely old champion, and a lot of people have played a extreme amount of games into it, they really know the flight path of the wild cards quite well, and they know the timing of it and the missile speed of it. So how you want to look to really land more cue cards is, first, obviously, there is the stun route, where you can just throw it at a stun target. Also, looking for cue cards over the wall is going to be great. The longer the wall is, the more you can keep your missiles kind of hidden in the wall, the better. So looking for places like that, or places maybe over here where there are objectives, is going to be extremely important, as well as if you are in a situation where there are a bunch of enemies and you are looking to get a bit of distance, using your red card to set it up and slowing everyone around the champion and then throwing out your Q is going to reduce their ability to dodge the card. So looking for champions, again, looking for throwing over the wall, looking for slowed or stun champions, and looking for champions that are going to have to go into a bottleneck are going to be a couple really good times to throw out your wild cards, and doing it at unexpected points, maybe feigning a roam up to the top lane and they move up a little bit to farm, and then throwing the Q off like that can be a decent way to get to land more Qs. Also, it is going to be a lot harder for them to dodge the cards the smaller the gaps are, and if you look at the skill shot, they get wider as it goes further. So throwing the cards at a closer range is going to be harder for them to dodge, because there are going to be 3 really close in front of them, as opposed to trying to throw your Q at max range where they have these huge valleys of able to dodge all throughout here. So those are my tips to land more of your Qs, and that will wrap up tip number 1. Alright, and getting into tip number 2, let's talk about the elephant in the room that I think is just so exceedingly important when you're playing Twisted Fate, and that is that a lot of the times in a lot of different matchups with Twisted Fate, you aren't going to be able to get solo kills at an extremely quick clip where you're able to carry heavily. So you need to roam extremely often. He is a great champion to kind of pile on top of enemies and to really take advantage of the ultimate and your roaming potential. How you can look to set up these roams is by using the AoE you have on the on a really long, nice range of your auto attack with the R, or your auto attack with the red card, and then your Qs to push out the waves. And when your enemy is busy CSing the minions under tower, you can look to really go to the other lanes and affect them in a way where you are able to get behind the enemy and really set up a good lane position. Now, how you want to look to play out these lanes are going to be extremely important. One thing I want to go over is how snowbally the lanes can be and who you want to affect the most. You really want to look at what the matchups are. I'm going to go over a couple really high priority lanes that you want to look at. If there is something like a Darius against a Fiora in the top line, 2 fighters that can carry late game if they're extremely far ahead, and the matchup is really just turns on a pin's head, you want to look to affect that lane. If it is something in the bottom where you have a Draven and a Leona that are always looking to go in and they need to do well in the early and mid game, you want to affect that lane more. But on the opposite side, if there is something like a Vayne and a Janna that are just kind of CSing and looking to play to late game, it is a lower priority thing. Similar to if it is something like a double tank top lane, you do not want to be looking to affect that more. And also, heavily encourage your jungler to roam into the jungle and counter jungle when you have lane priority. Say your bot lane is pushing in, encourage your jungler to say, hey, invade the bottom lane when the bot lane is pushing, because you can quickly reinforce him. And if it's something like a Lee Sin into a Kha'Zix, that is a really topsy-turvy matchup that can really just start snowballing one way, you want to look to affect that lane. So look to see where you can have the most impact on these roams. As the Destiny is a pretty long cooldown on your first use at level 6, you want to get the most bang for your buck. You want to have the most effect on the map, and doing that is really going to open up a lot of your games and just really give you a better understanding of what lanes are the most important. And that will wrap up tip number 2 for Twisted Fate. All right, and getting into tip number 3, I want to talk a little bit about itemization. I think this is so great on Twisted Fate because he has such an insanely flexible. First of all, you can go an extremely flexible rune setup. This is just my particular favorite because you're able to switch through a lot of different summoner spells. And then with your items, picking up different things is just so easy with Twisted Fate, and you can really cater it towards what you are playing against. Say if you're playing against a champion like Fizz or Zed with a really high impact ultimate, things like Zhonya's can be extremely strong. Maybe you want to be a little bit of a tankier engage Twisted Fate, and you want to look into getting the early Roa to make sure you're able to at least take a little bit of damage before you while getting off your gold card. If you want to be a little bit more aggressive, you can go Rabadons and Void Staff. You want to go a really heavy split push build with a decent amount of damage. Lichbane can be extremely strong, and then there's the whole AD build where you can go the Triforce and just be a little bit more of a lane boy. So Twisted Fate is a great champion that I think is a decent blind pick in the respect of you're able to really adjust your build towards what your team needs. If your team needs a really strong AP threat, if your team needs just maybe a bit of engage, if your team needs maybe a stronger hyper carry ADC for the late game, he can do that with this Triforce build. And he's not going to be as strong as a crit marksman, but he will be a decent backup carry for him. So having a really flexible type of rune setup and item setup really leaves the onus on the player. And how you want to look to take advantage of this is just really be open to trying out new things. Don't be that person that sees like Dopa or Faker doing Twisted Fate a single way and let's just only play that way over and over again. Watch several other people that play a lot of Twisted Fate a lot and have different opinions on it, and try that for yourself and see if it works with your play style, because there's so many different ways to play it. I mean, every single one of these runes could probably be changed out for something else in the line. I just like Demolish because you're able to lane bully and push really hard with Twisted Fate, so you're usually able to get quite a few Demolish procs. And then maybe you're playing against an assassin and you want bone plating, or maybe you don't even want to go resolve secondary. There's so many different rune choices and item choices you can do, and if you have any questions about that, you can hit me up down below. All right, and getting into tip number 4, I want to talk about one of the most important things to have a good understanding of when you're playing Twisted Fate, and why people with really strong fundamentals can really make a good go at Twisted Fate. And that is how important vision control. I'd say the only other champion that is going to be more important to have vision control with is something like a Fiddlesticks, where you just rely on your ult being unseen while you jump in. So how you want to look to do this is to always make sure to have a decent amount of control wards on your person and be able to set up your roams in a way where they do not know which lane you're going to, if you're feigning a roam, what you're looking to do. And how you do that is by keeping them blind in a combination of oracle lenses and control wards. These are just going to be so great with augmenting your build and your ability to move around the map without knowing people might be getting in trouble, because you are getting close to them with your destiny. And really setting up picks from the Fog of War is going to be extremely strong because of your really good strong stun that you can get on a pretty relatively low cooldown when you are playing Twisted Fate. It is so important to get a good understanding of it. I'm going to go over a couple different ways you can look to play around with your vision control, and that is, first of all, if you are in a lane where you're just dominating them and you are really up high in CS, they're maybe struggling to CS under the tower, you're bullying them off a lane a little bit, you can do a feign roam. Make sure that you do a really obvious walk over into the side that you're looking to set up the trap, and look to go into the bush right here and wait for them to match the roam. This is going to be extremely easy to set up. You will be so surprised in lower elo because they are trained to follow up those ganks, or they're going to get bitched at and be the other person is going to be very toxic to them if they do not follow your roam. So setting up a trap like this is going to be a great and easy way to chase them back down to their tower, and just make sure that the farther ahead you are, the closer you can allow them to get, so they have to run even farther away from you. So make sure to set up these feign roams to confuse and to kind of obfuscate when you are looking to actually do your real roams, and this will just cause a lot of chaos around the map. They won't really have a good understanding. You don't want to be that Twisted Fate that always just is, every single time he gets out of Fog of War, he is looking to roam and just go into the lane that he walked towards. Maybe mix it up with going into the enemy jungle, getting some deep wards, maybe scout out the enemy jungle, or look to counter jungle him, or set up one of the traps that I was talking about earlier, or set up an actual roam, or do a feign roam into something like a Q that is hidden by the wall and coming from an unexpected angle. So those are kind of a few tricks you can use to really keep people off center when you are playing Twisted Fate. And I'll wrap up this tip. Alright, and for the final tip, I want to go over a couple small things that I think are really going to help out a few people that are a little bit newer to Twisted Fate, and that is the power of having a gold card selected. It's like you have like cooties and you're in kindergarten. People just run away from you so heavily. And it will be just a great way to zone out the enemy, maybe off something like a cannon, because if you see a Twisted Fate running at you with the gold card, it is always assumed that there is a jungler nearby and they're looking to gank. Even when you can, when the jungler isn't there, you can kind of fake this power and this kind of threatening the power of the gank mid lane without the jungler being there, forcing them off CS, making them lose resources, and just making them, you can even make them lose experience if you chase them far enough away from the minion waves. So always look to use this particularly if they are a neutral or a passive player and they aren't overly aggressive and willing to take a gamble. You can really punish these passive players with getting this gold card up and threatening it on them. So make sure that you are using this quite a bit. Also, you usually want to back before you hit level 6, because you want to have a pair of boots that are going to help you run at the enemy champions and get you as much power as possible before looking into your first roam with your destiny. So always look to back at maybe level 5 and try and push out the lane before that, so it really makes this first high cooldown level 1 Twisted Fate ult is going to have as much impact as possible around the map, and you want to play around that. The last thing you want to do is Destiny when you have 200 mana, then you use the ult, you have 100 mana, and then you only have a little bit of mana to chase and kill down the enemy, and you haven't even backed, so you do not have as much power as possible when you are looking to play that. And finally, I could have added this to tip number 1, but I felt like that one was going a little bit long. When you are looking to hit Qs on people, another way you can look to land more of them is when they look to lock in an animation. I'll show you what I mean right now. When locking in an animation is done when you are auto attacking a champion, so punishing them when they are about to last hit, you just keep track of your own minions health bars, and when you see a minion's health bar about to go really low, the enemy is going to want to come up and CS it, and when they are about to lock into their auto attack animation, you throw out a Q and you can hit them several times. There's a couple small things with these skins. The Underworld cards are a little bit hard to see, but I think the High Noon is a really good skin for Twisted Fate, and then of course Underworld is a decent skin for him as well, just because the cards are going to be a little bit harder to see, and a couple other small things. So that will wrap up my tip video for Twisted Fate. If you guys have any questions for me, you can hit me up in the comments down below, and as always guys, take it easy.